Hi, I'm Father Barry Langley. Welcome to Friars on Film. The movie I want to talk to you about today is the new movie by Steven Spielberg. This is, of course, the blockbuster movie Lincoln. It stars Daniel Day-Lewis as the 16th president, along with Sally Field as his wife Mary Todd, and most notably Tommy Lee Jones as the congressman from Pennsylvania, Thaddeus Stevens. It's a really, really wonderful movie. It's sure to be nominated in many categories in the upcoming Oscars race. It's well worth seeing. I think so often we have this mythic image of Lincoln from the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, where he's sort of stuck in stone and one-dimensional kind of in our view of him. This film really helps us see Lincoln as a man, true and full in his humanity. It shows us Lincoln, the compassionate father who mourns still the early loss and death of his young son, the father who's concerned about his other son who wants to join the Union Army, as well as a compassionate commander-in-chief who mourns the loss of every soldier, both Union and Confederate soldier alike. And we see Lincoln as the one who is ideally looking to accomplish major political tasks that seem impossible, like the passage of the 13th Amendment abolishing slavery. And finally, we see Lincoln as well as this man who wanted to have reconciliation occur with all those who had rebelled against the Union. He had a very compassionate attitude about how to reconcile these men and these states back into the Union without punishing them in a terrible way, but really being very compassionate and human towards them. And this, I think, is really where the film really lasts and makes some really wonderful statements for us in our Christian faith. We're challenged as well by Scripture to really let go of past hurts, past wounds, past failures on our part and the part of others. The great prophet Baruch in the Old Testament, who was ascribed to the prophet Jeremiah, wrote about this in writing to the Israelites who were suffering in exile. He says to them, speaking the words of God, "Let go of your past hurts. Let go of your past failures. Stop your mourning. Look instead to the new day God gives you every single day. Look to that new possibility of reconciliation. Look to that new day that God is going to bring you back and restore you to your homeland." It's a very positive, hope-filled message that Baruch offers them. And we're challenged to see that every single day God gives us a new opportunity to grow, to develop, to become more loving as God is loving towards us. All too often we get stuck, I believe, in our own failures, our own woundedness, and our own sinfulness, and really stay fixed on that, looking to our past, rather than letting go of that and moving ahead to the possibilities of the future and the present new day God gives us every single day. We're challenged all the time to embrace and do something with that new opportunity, cooperate with God's grace that comes to us new every single day. And again, I think Lincoln in this film portrays so beautifully this idea of tackling the challenges, the tough issues of the day, even though it can be very, very hard and painful to do so. In this movie, it's beautiful how Lincoln is shown reaching out to those congressmen who were adamantly opposed to his passage of the 13th Amendment. He meets them where they are. He meets them in a very personal way, cajoling them and urging them to the higher good, the higher calling that God does not look favorably upon human slavery. And he does this in a very, very personal way. Again, this is reminding us in a similar way, St. Paul, in writing to the Philippians, he loves this community to death, and he's really encouraging them to live their fullest lives, to live completely and embrace the new life God has given them through the life, the death, the ministry, and resurrection of Jesus, and their baptism in that faith. And this exuberance that Paul writes to the Philippians about is interesting, because while Paul was writing this letter to the Philippians, he himself was in fact in prison. And so rather than dwelling on his own hardships, his own difficulties, he's rather emphasizing and highlighting for them, and ultimately for us, that God sees us and loves us and urges us to go beyond the challenges we face and accomplish the better things, to look to the ways we can be fulfilling God's love in the world despite the challenges that come our way. And finally, I think, again, this film, Lincoln, has really a challenge for us, because again, as he's tackling this tough issue of trying to pass the 13th Amendment, he saw that this was the ultimate, sort of for him, the day of the Lord, that final reckoning occurrence for him in his life, that challenging, perfect moment for him to tackle this issue. This reminds us again that John the Baptist was the herald of the coming of Jesus. He saw that day of the Lord coming when God would be made manifest in human flesh and become one of us in the birth of Jesus. And he highlighted to Jesus that this was the one who was to come. He saw that this was the day of the Lord. This was that chance to embrace in a new way God's love for all of humanity. We're challenged in our own life to embrace that reality and those challenges we have in our own time. This is one of the enduring gifts, I think, of this film, is that it shows us, and even in the hardest of times, there are ways we can bridge the gap, work together to mend fences, to reach across the aisle, as it were, and accomplish the greater good for us, for our society, and for our world. This is certainly the important message for us as a nation in these most contentious of political times. Again, finally, I think this movie really calls us to embrace that reality and embody that reality for ourselves and for our world. That we are challenged every single day to embrace the newness of God's love for us and capture that for ourselves and for our world and build up that kingdom of God's love, mercy, healing, and forgiveness and grace in our own time. That's all for now. In the meantime, save me a seat up front.